Well, hello there and welcome to the candy wallpapered upstairs hallway of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and you Stelfers for February 17th, the day of the battler. That's right. And here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of the battler. We have us an image that is particularly apt, I would argue. What is it? Boom! It's a pair of boxing gloves, and it's positioned in such a way as to look as if it's got receiving hands. Now, does that speak to the day of the battler? I would say it kind of does. I would say it kind of does. On days when sometimes they don't otherwise really seem to make any kind of sense there. That having been said, visual representational image isn't altogether all too important. I just like folks to kind of see what's on the page, kind of get you enmeshed further in the paradigm that's going on off screen here. What is important, however, on these here parts, not to say the visual representational image is all that important, it's February 17th, and hence somebody's birthday. So if your birthday is February 17th, I just want to say happy birthday. That's what's important around here. So if you take nothing else from that, I just want to say happy birthday. But if this finds you late, I don't know, days, weeks, months, well, I hope you had a happy birthday in that circumstance. But for everybody else joining us randomly, or more ideally, they're here to celebrate, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the redirect, something I like to do around these here parts, and that is roll some dice. That's right, this is the DykASSt birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake, but I do so, more importantly, for synchronicity's sake. And oh, here we go, folks. I rolled us some doubles. That's right, a 5 and a 5 for a 10. Straight to jail for you. There you go. Now, what is synchronicity? You're probably wondering. Well, my friends, as I've heard it told, the universe is apt to put things in our path as we go in through this life here and help us manifest our goals and realize our aspirations. But a lot of times, as we're getting on with going through through our errands for the day or the commute to the job, hey, we're not necessarily paying a lot of minds to the things we encounter. That's right, we kind of got the blinders on to what's going on around us. We may see such things, but we may not lend much credence to their significance, if you like. So this is a little bit of an exercise to let you start trying to notice the things that the universe is putting in our path, getting those blinders off. But how do we do that? Well, we need a sign that we can't help but notice, something that's agreed upon between us and the universe. That's right, your daily numbers, your 5 and your 5 for a 10. Now, you don't have to go with the numbers I rolled for you. The intention is there, but it's probably advisable you take your own set of dice if this is something you want to try out. So you can ascribe directional values to number sets and time limits with which to go in those directions. But once you've established all that, hey, pick out a spot near and dear to your heart or some place maybe you haven't explored before. I'd like to choose the the town square, if you like, something easy, right? So you get out, but like I said, before you start doing this, make sure you get them blinders off because you want to start soaking up things like a sponge. To say the day might start to take on a little bit of a theme. Let's take the boxing gloves, for instance. You know, you're out there in the middle of downtown walking around. You're not apt to necessarily see a lot of boxing gloves, but hey, maybe that's just not the case. Maybe you do start to see such things, maybe, but not necessarily in a straightforward manner to say people wearing them as they're walking around. Could be, but you're more apt to start seeing them on, say, advertisements on the side of bus benches, or maybe in murals on the side of buildings, maybe hanging in shop windows, or painted on there as a trying to get you to come into the store. Just things like that. Now, you're not necessarily apt to see it. But again, just be mindful for it. And it can be anything. It can be something random. I'm just picking that out of the book because it's right in front of us. But again, let's say you start off on this journey, you roll yourself your dice, your time limit, and your directional value, and you set off. And maybe on this first leg, you're not necessarily noticing anything of note. You're just taking things in, like I said, seeing what you see, and maybe at the end of this time limit, hey, you start looking around because you haven't seen anything, but you're looking for something small, taking yourself a moment to kind of compose yourself, and you might just happen to notice something small like the street number you're on. That's right, maybe 55th Avenue or 10th Avenue. I would take that as a sign you're on the right track, all right? So once again, do the same thing. Roll your dice, your directional value. Maybe this time at the end of your time limit, you find yourself in front of a building with, that's right, it could be something like a 10 in the address. I would say maybe try to go in that building because it's the same numbers you got. And you go up there, put your hand on the door, What's this? Maybe it's locked. Oh, this doesn't seem to be very kismet, right? Well, that's okay. Like I said, just take a moment, compose yourself, maybe turn around, get ready to roll yourself a dice value and everything else again. But what's this you notice? Well, hey, maybe right up the street a piece, somebody's in a rush and they're dropping things off in the mailbox there. And then before you know it, you're going to roll your dice, and you notice that they turn and they move, and hey, something falls down. It doesn't go in the mailbox, and boom, they're off like a shot. They didn't even notice it. So you go up there, you pick up the mail there. It happens to be a postcard, say, and you look at it, and what's this? There's no stamp on it, and there's also no actual address for it to go to. But there's a return address. Hey, you know what? And you just so happen to notice, again, maybe in that address, that's right, your numbers. So again, I would take that as a sign. And you got the address, and maybe you see it's not too far away. So hey, you just head off to the address, and once you get there, what do you see? Oh, it's this, maybe. It's just ready for a birthday party. They got the whole to-do going on. Inflatable castle. They got the omelet bar with the chef there. Maybe they got the dry ice cream. The whole kit and caboodle. All right, and you go up to the door. You knock. A little jealous that somebody else is getting something so blown out for their birthday, and someone comes to the door and you say, "Hey, I just happened to notice that somebody was at the mailbox. Maybe it's them. Maybe it was someone else. They dropped this postcard here. I was gonna drop it in the mail for you, but there's no address for it to go to, and there's no stamp. So hey, I just thought I'd bring it back my way." Oh, I appreciate that. Very nice, very nice. You go, not a problem. You step and you go to roll your dice again and get ready to go. What are you doing? You know what? In instances where people might ask what you're up to, just tell them what you're doing. Show them your dice. Maybe show them this video. I'm just trying to rack up some synchronicities. As you can see, like my daily numbers happen to be part of your address. Just little things like that. And it brought me here. Just so happens to be my birthday. And they go, yeah, that's crazy. It's my birthday too. That's right. They're just a big old grown-up adult, but what are they doing? They're throwing themselves a party. That's right. So, hey, you know what? Maybe they're apt to ask you to stick around. And you know what? You haven't had an omelet bar or a dry ice cream before, and you'd like to bounce your castle yourself. Maybe you have to stick around, all right? Maybe you just made yourself a new friend. So, hey, it doesn't have to be more complicated than that, though I imagine that's probably not apt to happen. A little bit harebrained there in that example, but that's the idea. Getting out there, seeing what the universe has in store for you, stacking up some coincidences, you know, drumming up some synchronicities, seeing what magic the universe has in store for you. So I think you get the idea. Get out there, see, taste, touch, smell a little bit of the magic, and you understand I brought it up. All right, let's dive in with your birthday read. That's why you're here. Your month is February, your day the 17th. Your sign is 27 to 29 degrees Aquarius of the Aquarius Pisces cusp, and your quality and elements is fixed air. February 17th, the day of the battler. The extremely sensitive individuals born on February 17th develop a tough armor around themselves early in life, and they go out to do battle with the world. Their backgrounds are rarely conducive to their particular form of expression, so they must fight for themselves from the word go. And some February 17th people are privileged, others disadvantaged, but from whatever strata they come, they are convinced of their ability to overcome obstacles in order to emerge as individuals in their own right. However, before they can battle with the world, those born on this day must battle with themselves to shape and mold themselves into a desired form. Because of criticism, expectations, or perhaps neglect, February 17th people come to realize very soon in their childhoods that their sensitive natures will not survive unless they strengthen their defenses. And in less evolved February 17 people, such defenses may manifest primarily as secretiveness, suspicion, and physical armor. In more evolved February 17 people, they are likely to manifest as talents, extensive knowledge, or physical presence. And unfortunately, those born on this day may come to insulate themselves from influences of any kind, good or bad, which try to get them through. And their toughness belies their hypersensitive interior, which really never dies away except in some highly unusual cases. In February 17th, people can be touched by the arrows of love and the soft hand of affection, But the shot must be well aimed and the sentiment direct and sincere. And those born on this day do not wish to be hindered in their quest for self-fulfillment. So often they ignore what could be desirable human contact to avoid getting stuck or bogged down. And the most highly advanced individuals born on this day allow their inner expressiveness and sensitivity to shine through, not only in their attitude but also in their work. And thus they have a kind of transparence where they render their armor invisible. In fact, however, it is still very much in place. February 17th, individuals are willing to go to bat for themselves, their family, and friends, even for strangers in need of their help. They are extremely realistic and usually possess an insight into the existing social order, with all its inequalities and unfairness. And although they are combative when provoked, those born on this day are not overly aggressive, and are slow to anger or upset. And they have an impressive earthiness, calm, and physical presence, which makes others sit up and take notice. Now, while warning those with hostile intentions toward them to watch out, those who mistake this calm for passivity are in for quite a shock. In February 17, people are believers, with their heart in their cause, whatever it may be. Most born on this day are spiritual warriors as well, whose goals are personal ones, and to whom self-development and personal expression are the most important values. And although objectivity caught up with themselves, or objectively caught up with themselves, rather, perhaps overly so, it says in parentheticals, they can be highly inspirational and uplifting to those around them. And I think I said uplifting, I meant uplifting. That's right. You got to get those words pronounced right. In any event, this has been a very interesting birthday breakdown. I'd say there were a lot of parallels with the days previous, specifically with yesterday, but it's still altogether a lot different. So that having been said, let's dive into a little bit of a commentary I like to provide on, just some of the things I found of interest, but also make some connections perhaps with days previous, also just the period in general, and just see what we can see here. Dive in with the day if you like. So, February 17th, the day of the battler. You're extremely sensitive individuals, the reading says, and you may have to develop a tough armor so as to do battle with the world. And interestingly, it's said that your background may not do you any favors with regard to the endeavors you may wish to pursue. So struggling for what you want may be a key factor baked into this overall bargain for you here today. But the reading claims you are readily confident in your capabilities and you're able to fight, to evolve into your more idealized form. And as it happens, however, contending with yourself may be a chief concern before you can take aim on the world at large and realize your desires. To say the reading claims you may be well aware of where you are at a deficit, and you'll need to build yourself up to reach your goals, which I would dare say is quite the personal insight to have. All right, too many people think they can do whatever they desire, completely oblivious to the reality that there's an integral part to the process in between having the dream and realizing it. That's right. That's bringing yourself to realize what's necessary to accomplish it, right? Building this armor to take on the world, however, can take on negative and positive realizations, depending upon, as the reading qualifies it, whether you're a higher or lesser evolved individual. All right? It's going to kind of shape what work needs to be done or how you approach that particular task. But in either case, it's said you may insulate yourself in no small extent, or to no small extent, rather, from any kind of influences that may come your way, interestingly. And said armor is also said to have, for the highly advanced circumstances, to maybe even be a little bit transparent, so as to allow your sensitivity to show, but still be there. Kind of an interesting dynamic. I don't think it's ever really come up to be mentioned in that particular regard. Having said that, you have to extend this protection, you might just be apt to do so to develop to the benefit of others, and also so as to stand up to injustice, which in the same way is kind of said about those specifically born on yesterday, and in no small part to a lot of the folks just in the Aquarius period in general. They're apt to be a very idealistic ilk and stand up for injustices. And here you're said to do so as well. But you also possess a grounded earthiness versus the more otherwise flighty, quick to anger nature of those born yesterday. So it sounded a lot like similar individuals, but the folks born yesterday, they're a lot quicker to anger. They're more flighty. They're apt to abandon things, just more spur of the moment. Here, I don't get that idea with you or that impression at all. It doesn't. It says you're more committed to seeing yourself through on the endeavors that you choose and building yourself up to where you need to be to realize it. Whereas they, if they think it's a losing prospect, they're apt to just drop it and move on. So I would say this is very interesting that you're both of a strong idealistic nature, but those natures are realized. The way that they're realized and implemented is completely different. So I like that it's kind of bringing that out to the fore and explaining as much, because they're such proximal days. You'd think they'd be somewhat similar in a lot of cases. And they are, but they're realized in a variety of different ways. So it's cool that this dynamic shows up once more so we can showcase that for you, kind of examine it. And that adds yet another interesting layer to an already fascinating birthday breakdown, like I said. And though I do wonder if you're overly objective, if you're being overly objective with regard to yourself, maybe you're over-insulating in such cases. Kind of interesting, this armor aspect. I didn't, the Day of Armor may seem to be more of an apt title, more so than the Day of the Battler. Who's to say? It did seem to come up quite a bit with the armor, though, so I got that a little bit more than somebody who's prepared to go to war. Just something I thought was a little interesting. But having said that, having relayed the breakdown, what I had to say about it, hopefully you took some value from it. Maybe that helped further isolate or narrow down whether or not this day spoke to you or not. Found if it better applied, if you like. And then if it didn't, hey, maybe we can make up for that as we dive in with your numbers and your planets. Or perhaps explain why it just may be the case if you find it is. All right, your numbers and planets. Those born on the 17th of the month are ruled by the number 8, as 1 plus 7 equals 8, and by the planet Saturn. And Saturn carries with it the feeling of limitation and restriction, and a judgmental aspect as well. And for February 17th, people who were born on the Aquarius Pisces cusp, Saturnian characteristics combined with those of Uranus, which is the ruler of Aquarius, and of Neptune, the ruler of Pisces, firm up their character. However, such a combination may indicate tendencies of secretiveness and suspicion, as well as eccentricity. And the number 8 carries a conflict between the material and the spiritual worlds, as those ruled by this number can be lonely and also prone to indulge in excess. Very interesting. I didn't pick up on those latter two qualities in the breakdown at all. Maybe it was in between the lines or something, but I seem to have breezed right past it if it was in there. Any event, hey, let's see if I mentioned anything like that in the breakdown. I might be getting ahead of myself. Let's dive back into the notes. The number 8 in the constrictive planet Saturn for feelings of limitation and personal responsibility, which went unmentioned, surprisingly, and restriction. And I say surprisingly because I'd say personal responsibility seemed to speak in no small part to the birthday breakdown. So I'm surprised they didn't incorporate this. But also surprisingly, or maybe perhaps unsurprisingly for me here, is they've been leaving a lot of those key descriptors out for this Aquarius period. There's things that describe the planet elsewhere in the book that are really apt to the day, and for whatever reason, they don't include them. I don't know. They just use more of the boilerplate approach, I guess. In any event, there's also, I don't know, it might be said that this restriction aspect is surprising on account of the Aquarius Pisces cusp dual rulership from the erratic and explosive planet Uranus, said to shake up and electrify any given planet that it co-rules, and that's its partnership with the planet Neptune, which rules over dreams as well as visions on many seemingly similar cases where the higher ideals of life are realized. So it's interesting that these two very dynamic, otherwise not necessarily conservative powered planets come into the bargain with Saturn for a bit of a conflict, I would say. And I think they mentioned as much there. So that might be lending to no uncertain amount of frustration in your life, considering Saturn doesn't necessarily agree with the things that are characteristic of those two planets. All these planets taken together make for quite the interesting, seemingly complex dynamic, is what I'm kind of trying to say. But with Saturn's conservative nature and a seemingly understandable reason as to why you're capable of being rather objective in your approach to life. And in spite of these other influences, I would say if you're able to still do that, hey, that's great. Because a lot of times Saturn gets lost in the wash if other dynamic planets come into co-rulership. And here I would argue that happens to be the case with these other two planets. And for that reason, I would say there's a stark separation from yesterday, too. That might be the key difference or key reason, rather, for why you're so different, is that planet Saturn coming in. Yesterday, it was the planet Neptune, and then in concert with, again, Uranus and Neptune. So for more of a highly Neptunian day for the dreams and visions. And then Uranus in there just a little bit to shake that dynamic. So here you get more of the conservative nature, personal responsibility. It tends to make a lot more sense as to why there would be such a different juxtaposition there, or a dichotomy, rather, if you like. But in any event, that's what I had to say about your numbers and planets. Perhaps it explains a little bit of this armoring, if you like, or you're building up to approach the world, or maybe why you feel the need to do as much. Assuming, again, the breakdown applies. But in any event, like I said, that's been your numbers and your planets. So let's move on to your tarot. That's right. One of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies, but it's just here in the book. We don't have to take it home with us to start dealing out the cards to predict our future, I guess. And in a lot of cases, we can also make further connotations or connections with the birthday breakdown itself. But sometimes not. We'll just have to see. So let's get into it here. The 17th card of the major arcana is the Star, which depicts a beautiful naked girl under the stars pouring refreshing water on the parched earth with one pitcher and reviving the stagnant water of a pond with another. She represents the glories of the earthly life, but also material enslavement to it. And the stars above her are an eternal reminder of the presence of the spiritual world. And the star may serve as a reminder for February 17th people not to only strive for bettering their material circumstances, but also to realize what is best in them. All right, hey, they buttoned that with a little bit of personalization for you. They don't often do that with the tarot, especially if they personalize the numbers and planets. And I would argue you got a little bit of both, so all the better. That's right. But those cusp dynamics, they tend to have to personalize those because they're so specific and shaking things up in a real interesting way that you can't necessarily copy-paste that from anywhere else in the book. But any event, let's dive back into the notes here. The tarot. All right. The star for a representation of the glories of the earthly life and our enslavement to it. And also a reminder of the spiritual world and the higher ideals, if you like, and to say that those are well within your grasp. Very apt card, I would say, as you come across in the birthday breakdown as a very grounded individual. Having said that, you seem to have these aspirations that you're already reaching for, even early on from life. And you notice, hey, I want to get after that, but hey, I might not be ready quite yet to do as much. So you've got to build up this armor or this ability to reach for those ideals. So you come from a very rational place, however, there. So you're very earthly, very grounded with as much the Saturn energy, if you like. But you got them dreams, right? So that would be the Neptunian aspect of it. Other days this card presents, they usually, I would say thanks to Saturn, because I think this only pops up on a number 8 day. They don't have Neptune or Uranus in the mix there, usually. And so they're very hyper grounded. And this recommendation to reach for the stars, or this spiritual, if you like, it's more of a recommendation for them versus a reminder for you. Because I think you've already got that baked into the pie there, if you like, or the recipe. So you're a little bit of an anomaly already, as seemingly afforded this baked in strength in the recipe there, if you like, whereas they need that recommendation because it's not in their mindset. They might be coupled with, say, Mars, and Mars is that god of war energy, and they're more aggressive, right? So they would be very much more grounded in the idea of dreams and visions and reaching for the stars. Not in their wheelhouse at all. So they really got to go after it and take it as food for thought. That's right. But in any event, yeah, I think it's a pretty apt card. It really speaks to the dynamic that the planets was endorsing. So the material and the spiritual, the high ideals, and reaching for them. In any event, that's been your tarot. So let's move on to your health. All right, let's see what we can see here with your health. Those born on February 17th often suffer injuries, particularly in their early years, that can be both that can bother them rather throughout life. And particularly at risk are their lower extremities and the internal abdominal organs, also the bones of the arm, the wrist, and the hand, and the venous circulatory system through thrombosis, it says in parentheticals. February 17th people should be extremely careful to control the amount of cream, animal fats, and sugar they consume in their diets to reduce the risk of circulatory system problems. And for most February 17th people, exercise of a non-competitive but self-developing type, such as weight training, swimming, running, hiking, or less strenuous forms of rock climbing, is recommended. All right, hey, pretty particularly interesting health entry here today. They listed a lot of things for you, and they don't normally do that. They even listed a lot of things that I would say have been largely lacking in the Aquarius period here specifically, but they threw them out there for you here today. But it also just kind of read like a laundry list, and that's not usual. So this thing's an anomaly in a variety of ways. In any event, let's dive back into the notes. I might be burning down everything I have to talk about. Let's see here. You're often suffering an early life injury that can carry on for you into the rest of your life. For yet another unique, highly individualized Aquarius health concern. And I say that because they all seem to be somewhat individualized. And that's particularly interesting for this period because most other periods, there's some kind of a through line. It follows some kind of a theme. And there might just be 2 or 3 different ones, but they all kind of seem to go into that one way or the other. The theme here seems to be that there is no particular theme. It all takes on some kind of its own form or fashion. So it's, again, here's another one. You might get some kind of injury that follows you through in your life. Mention of the bones in the arm, wrist, and hand, that's new. The Aquarius body area is the circulatory system and the lower legs and ankles specifically. So those coming up makes sense, but also these areas of the inner abdominal organs, that's new, as well as, well, in the venous system, as they said there, that's part of it. So that's not news, but what is news is that they bring it up at all. A lot of the times I'm the one that has to impart that. So like I said, it's a very uncharacteristic correlation. But maybe with this hands and wrists and bones thing, I would say that speaks to the visual representational image of the boxing gloves, interestingly enough. And a lot of times we don't get something that speaks to the visual representational image. It usually just kind of is associated with the title. In a lot of cases, not even then. It's a stretch to relate it to even the title. So I thought it was interesting that we were able to make a connotation with the visual representational image. Here nor there, it's just something that stood out for me. But also interestingly, very specific exercise types they mentioned, but no particular degree of quality when a lot of Aquarius days tend to simply get told to do moderate or light exercise. And that seems to be the running theme throughout the book. Aggressive, moderate, vigorous, they all drill down on some approach to the exercise. And in some cases, particular exercises or activities in general. You just got the activities in general, so that's interesting. But like I said, the Aquarius body types, or body areas, the circulatory system and the lower legs and ankles, they mentioned for you avoidance of the meat, I believe. Oh yeah, the animal fat and dairy cream, those and the dairy fats, animal fats, dairy fats rather. Said all that. I bring that up because that comes up oftentimes with Capricorn. Very often comes up with Capricorn, and their body areas were the veins and the skeleton. And so I've always been mentioning, hey, maybe take note of those things. If there's some kind of food you don't know to avoid or maybe incorporate, being mindful of consuming. And here they came right out and said it. And a lot of times I was just kind of grasping at straws to say that's a good association to make to take care of the heart. And then a few days, they've actually said things to take care of your heart. And also things to necessarily cut down on to cholesterol and thrombosis and embolism and stroke. They threw that in here for you too, and they often don't do that. But it's just interesting. You got a lot of the recommendations that I have to put into the thing myself because they seem to kind of cut it out and not go into the details with as much. So that's another reason why it was an anomaly today. So I also like to recommend folks maybe get some compression socks so they can head off at the pass those strokes or embolisms you may be susceptible to, but also providing support for your ankles and your lower legs there. So something to consider, some food for thought if you like. But in any event, that's been your health, and let's move on to some advice. All right, here we go. Keep yourself open to the outside world, and at least let others look in, even if entrance is denied. Use your sensitivity to teach you the way to the spiritual life, and beware of being too secretive or suspicious. All right. Very interesting with the advice here today. You know, in no small part, a lot of the advice the past few days has been kind of mismatched. It doesn't really seem to apply. There seems to be a bit of a disconnect, if you like. But I would say this largely speaks to what was gone over in the breakdown. So let's see what I had to say about what they had to say. Here we go. They said, open yourself up to the outside world. And I would say this was a chief piece of information that stood out in the breakdown. You tend to throw that armor up as you do battle to find your place in the world. I'd say at least make an effort to maybe extend yourself out there and try new things to some extent. Be open to being open, perhaps. All right. They said at least let others look in. Okay. Be like that highly advanced individual that they mentioned, who has the transparent armor. Which, as it happens, is a huge through line through not just Capricorn, but also Aquarius, being transparent so that you can let other people approach you more openly. If they can see that human aspect of you, they're apt to, come to you a little bit more to try and relate. Whereas if you got that wall up, hey, they're apt to see that and then see you as a cold customer, if you like. So a bit of a common theme there through not just this period, but last also. So they bring that up with the transparent armor. Make it transparent. So good piece of advice. And they also said use sensitivity to teach. All right, your way into the spiritual life. Build up all your strengths, I would say, and use all your traits. All right, don't poo-poo the spiritual stuff. You know, it's part of you. You got the capacity for it. Sounds like you got the baked-in innate ability to access as much versus the other people in this period who don't necessarily have it. So use the strengths that you got. Use all the tools in your bag. So what else do they have to say here? Remember your capacity for teaching the higher ideals. All right, there's far more to it than just going after your dreams and realizing the basic idealisms there. They said that you stand up for other people, hey, continue to do so, and realize that you have there's more life than just helping bolster your own things. Though I'd say that's a little bit of a reiteration. You already know as much, so maybe it just helps to further endorse the idea. Don't give up on that. They also said, beware being too secretive or suspicious. A little bit more of that armor, I would argue. But I'd say it closes you off from others, and it is a chief reason for being transparent. And I would say that's why, again, it comes up. They mention it in no small part because they need to reiterate it for you. It's very important. So, in any event, that's been your advice. So let's move on to your meditation. That's right. It's your birthday. You get a meditation. All right, that which offers no resistance can be harder to push. Oh, Interesting. I like this one. A little bit zen, if you like. That which offers no resistance can be harder to push. All right. It's your birthday, your meditation. I'm not going to provide my particular spin or interpretation of as much. It wouldn't do you any favors if I was to break it down for you. And it might even lend an idea that you wouldn't have had or you wouldn't have caught into. So I don't want to influence it one way or the other for you. Your birthday, your meditation. But with your meditation in the can, let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. That's right. Let's hold up that objective mirror that you're so apt to maybe use on yourself and look and see where you got the bulk and where you otherwise a little more atrophied within the metaphor. That's right. Your strengths, your indomitable. That's right. Your spiritual and your sensitive. All right, the whole package, I would say. All the different pieces of the spectrum there, if you like. Interesting. But your weaknesses. Oh, you're armored, you're isolated, and you're stuck. Oh, okay. Hey, you know what? We saw all those, I would say. And, oftentimes I like to argue our weaknesses aren't necessarily weaknesses, just depending upon the situation in which situations in which we encounter, right? Sometimes we can use our weaknesses as strengths. There was one day I saw impulsive come up as a strength, and the very next day it traded into being a weakness. And so I was like, man, what's the disconnect here? I think it's just the individual, right? But also the circumstance. I often like to argue our strengths are going to help us bring back or improve upon our weaknesses if it's something that we think we need to do also. You're indomitable, spiritual, and sensitive. I would say you've got the gumption, the baked-in ability, and the character to rise to the occasion. And I don't know, dream your way through it with the spiritual and sensitive. Hey, to understand the part of you that's maybe needs to cope with certain things in order to overcome, I would say. The armor, isolated and stuck. Insofar as how are those strengths? Well, that seems pretty apparent, right? You're able to throw yourself into the fire, all right? Withstand the blows, insulated and armored. The stuck aspect, though, how could that be a strength? Well, I would say maybe if you're able to hold your position on something. In a lot of cases, some people aren't able to do that. It's a bit of a weakness for them. When it says you're stuck, there is a weakness, right? I don't know. In some certain circumstances, we need to be hard, fast, and set in our ways. But like I said, it can also be a weakness. So we just need to pick the right situation with which to use as much. All right. So I'd say that's half the problem there, if not more. Figuring out how to use it in the right situation or to identify it. But that said, that's been your strengths and your weaknesses. If you want to improve upon them, I think your strengths are going to help you do that. But I also like to say, don't get rid of your weaknesses altogether because they're part of who we are. That's right. So with your strengths and weaknesses in the can, let's move on to those born on this day. And when we get into those born on this day, something I like to do is not only see who shares your company, but approach it from the perspective of figuring out our passions. Let's see if we can't take some inspiration from those who share our company to maybe help us realize the things we like to do in this life, because I think it's very important that that's something we're chasing after. Maybe doing backflips out of bed in the morning to get after and start our day with. Because too often I get out in the world and meet folks and ask them what they do and more importantly if they like it, and they don't. Oftentimes I think folks just get out of school right into the first job they can grab, and so that they can make ends meet. And the fatal flaw there is that it might not have anything to do with who they are or what they like to do. But I also like to think, too, that sometimes people just haven't had the opportunity to put in the time and the work to figure those things out. So I think this is the perfect opportunity to put our minds to that. Now, it may be kind of hard to take inspiration from other people's accomplishments, and those things might not have even been their passion, but I think it's the perfect opportunity, like I said, because if there's anything I wish for you on your birthday, it's that you're chasing after a passion, all right? And if you already have one, well, then the hat I'm not wearing is off to you, so you can just see who shares your birthday, what lottery you drew. So let's dive into it here. We have Marianne Anderson, or Marianne, rather. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Marian. I know Marianne can also be spelled differently, but any event, Marianne Anderson, contralto concert singer, and called the greatest voice of her generation. We also have Jim Brown of the Browns. He was a Browns football fullback, 8-time rushing leader, 8-time All-Pro, and 1 out of 9 seasons played was an all-time leader in touchdowns scored, and a film actor. We also have Michael Jordan, the Bulls basketball guard, and he led the NBA in scoring 7 years in a row, rather. And he was a 6-time All-NBA and 3-time MVP, and U.S. Olympic Dream Team gold medalist. And this book was written a little bit before he retired, so those stats probably changed. We also have Huey Newton, a political activist and co-founder of the Black Panther Party, and shot to death by a crack dealer, it says. Sometimes these things correlate the bad news, too. So, in any event, moving on, Isabel Eberhardt, an adventurer and a writer. We also have Horace Benedict de Saussure, I believe, Genovese 18th century philosophy professor, and a mountain climber. Interesting. We also have Arcangelo Corelli, an Italian Baroque composer. Francis, Duke of Guise, was a French 16th century warrior. Alan Bates, a stage and film actor. Chaim Potok, a novelist of My Name is Asher Lev. We also have Hal Holbrook, a stage and film actor, a one-man show, it says, of Mark Twain Tonight! Exclamation point. We also have Andrew Banjo Patterson, an Australian poet, journalist, and author of Australian anthem, Waltzing Matilda. Interesting. We also have Lou Diamond Phillips, the film actor. We have Red Barber, the sportscaster and winner of a Peabody Award. Arthur Kennedy, a film actor. Koji Kobayashi, a Japanese executive and responsible for Competition and Communism, a book, I'm guessing. And Theodore Shelf, Hollywood costume and horror effects designer. We also have Barry Humphries, an Australian entertainer and female impersonator. We also have Ruth Rendell, the crime novelist of The Best Man to Die, and Margaret Truman, the president's daughter. All right, and I was a bit mumble-mouthed today in concert with not knowing how to pronounce some of these names, so let's make up for me butchering as much on my side of things. Not done in malice, it's just hooked on phonics isn't the best tool for pronouncing names, and I got a little bit of a head cold, so that putting that into the bargain doesn't help either. But that having been said, I know it's a big-ass, tall order to try to take inspiration from other people's accomplishments, but hey, maybe me just putting the bug in your ear about as much help you start to kindle up the fires there, or add some air to the embers if you had been chasing that and maybe you had to abandon it for one reason or another. But that said, like I said, if I can wish anything for you on your birthday, it's that you're doing backflips out of bed, chasing after a passion. All right? But that essentially rounds out your birthday read, except to say your season is winter, your sign is Aquarius of the Aquarius Pisces Cusp, and your quality and elements is fixed air. And this has been February 17th, the day of the battler. And you know what's unique about it? Like I said, we got to incorporate the visual representational image. We don't often get to do that. So, hey, there's a good takeaway for me, anyhow. You probably don't care, right? This has been The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and you, Stelfers. And I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description if you're interested in picking up a copy. It makes an excellent coffee table book. It's going to help you get the party started off right. If you have trouble breaking the ice, it's a dinner party or birthday party. I don't know. Hey, you know what? It's a great tool if that's heavy lifting that you would rather not do, or if you're rather insulated, if they said. So the affiliate link's down there. Help save you the hassle having to type it in the browser. And it's right above a little personal birthday message I'd like to leave for the birthday boys and girls, ladies and gents there, if you're interested. That having been said, the book having been relayed, like I said at the top, what's important around here outside the birthday book is, like I said, wishing you a happy birthday. So once again, happy birthday, all right? And for everybody else who joined us to celebrate, hey, I just want to say thanks for joining us. I hope you took something of value, at least found it interesting, and you join us for your birthday read. That's right. But lest I forget, before I take us out, your daily numbers. That's right. Get out there. Let the universe show you it's with you on your path. Stack up some coincidences. And if you just get out there and taste a little bit of the magic, or see it, hear it, intuit it, you'll understand why I brought it up, regardless of my example. Just seeing things line up and knowing that the universe is with you on your path, it's huge. And so I wish that for you if you're looking for something to do. So I just want to relate that it's been, thank you for the pleasure of your time. And it's been a privilege to share your birthday with you. I enjoy doing these things, even when I got to get out of bed feeling a little bit under the weather. Yeah, let's rally. Let's rally. We got some birthdays to wish. That's right. So some birthday wishes to convey. That's right. So once again, happy birthday. Take care of yourselves. And you know what? Don't be afraid to let that armor go a little transparent if you like. That's right. You don't have to take it off. Just let it go transparent. Keep battling, all right? Happy birthday.